Hello and welcome back to Hudson Auto Films for the first time in 2025. I hope you had a great New Year's and that 2025 has been good to you so far. As you can tell, today we are back on the 4x4 Aston Martin. I'm having a little bit of a slow start to the year as I've been feeling quite unwell, so today we're going to do something quite simple and fun. The goal of today's episode is to make a survival, storage, jerry can, pack holder for the back of the 4x4 Aston. Not only will this be really useful when we take this thing on road trips, but it's also to remedy a slight problem we've got. So as a lot of you know, and those of you who haven't watched can see, we have quite a big overhang of the Landrover chassis coming out the back of the Aston. In an ideal world, we just chop this off and be done with it. However, in the UK, if you modify the chassis at all, you lose the registration, you have to undergo certain testing, which we're trying to avoid. So we have to retain a completely original, unmodified chassis. So we've got to keep this, and also it's really useful having a good tow ball, having an original mounting tow ball we can rely on. So we need to somehow blend this in. As you can see, even with our bumper fitted, even though it tidies up a lot of it, we still have this overhang that needs addressing. So essentially we're going to build a frame that bolts on to the factory mounting points. As you can see, we're missing one here, which we'll have to remedy when we fix the chassis, but we can base it off the one on this side. So building a basic frame that holds a couple of these and some other bits and bobs. So let's do it. Okay, so there we go. That is the rough idea. It's all kind of sitting rather unevenly right now, but that is the principle. Obviously, we're missing the pieces which will stop the jerry cans from falling out the bottom, but I'm going to bring some metal back home, which is where I have to weld this thing up, so we can put that in there. Obviously, we'll also have to have a little beam which kind of keeps them in place. I've kept this space in the middle for a variety of reasons. I would like to have something else fitted in there, but I also know I've got some other jerry can sizes which are basically the same profile but wider, so I want to allow for those. But I wanted it to be this width because that is the width of the rear cross member that we're trying to hide, and also the gap in the middle. I kind of like the idea of being able to see the Aston badge between. Obviously this does come up quite high, so you will basically be able to see the beacon in the middle, which will be quite cool. As you can see, I got some new safety goggles for Christmas from my lovely wife. I feel a little bit like Ali G. They're quite cool though. So next we have to take all this home and some extra metal to make those final bits. because we still don't have power at the barn. We will very soon though, but until then we need to take this all home, get it welded, then we can bring it back and test fit it to the car. Well, there we have it. As you saw, I have test fitted it just using a clamp for now, but it is on and I'm really happy with how it's turned out actually. It's incredibly primitive, but it works and it does what it's meant to do. I changed my mind a few things and didn't update you, including the mounting points. I decided basically not to make it that wide because we've got the exhaust exits there. Obviously the Land Rover exhaust isn't going to be hanging out. We are going to use the Aston exhaust outlets. So I didn't really want this wrapping around any further. Obviously, fuel cans and heat and all that sort of thing aren't a good mix. So I decided I wanted to keep it as central as possible and just really address the main width of the rear cross member of the Land Rover. What we'll do with the little mounting points, I'm not quite sure. This bit unbolts and you're left with actually a much smaller piece underneath. So, you know, we could mount something small to that and just hide it away. But overall, it really does the job. It's, I hope it comes across in video, but it really just tidies up the back and makes it feel purposeful. When you kind of look at it as a whole, it just kind of ties in, yeah, and looks ready for adventure. Another thing I did off camera, and you can't see it visibly, as you can probably see and you saw when I was making this, I didn't put any supports across on the underside to stop the cans falling through. What I did instead was I made the kind of bottom rectangular frame marginally tighter than the top. So basically the jerry cans are sitting on this lip, so they won't fall through, but then the top is just kind of a couple of millimeters wider, so they can slide through, which is good. If I take you round and pull this one out, you can get a better look kind of inside at what's going on. The goal is when we properly mount this, which will happen, you know, kind of once the chassis is all nice in the next month, we'll work off the mounting point for this portion of the toe ball assembly. So hopefully kind of create something which just loops in and latches those together. Then again, we get around the whole not modifying the original chassis, we're just bolting to it. But yeah, we'll have to figure that out, see if we might have to add a little bit of a support going down. Obviously right now, as you can see, I've got the brake and clutch fluid as a major support system, but we might be able to, you know, latch it round and it might support itself. This isn't heavy at all. Obviously the jerry cans, when they're full, will be very heavy. But yeah, we'll see. Overall, the concept is there and I'm really pleased with it. Another thing we'll do once it's all kind of finalised and painted is I've got this thin rubber matting, or not even matting, it's too thin to call it matting, just this thin rubber sheet, which I bought for a variety of things because I want to put rubber between any sort of steel and aluminium. Even though rubber does react as well, it doesn't react quite as aggressively. So I got all this rubber sheeting to cause that separation, but as well as that, we'll line the inside of the bars of the jerry can carrier, just so obviously it means less rattling. You know, the jerry cans are metal, metal is annoying. Even though they fit very snug, they'll still be annoying, they'll still vibrate. So we'll put lining in there to hopefully reduce that just a little bit. But overall, I think this is going to be, you know, the sort of car where you are going to get a few rattles. Land Rovers have enough rattles already, but when you chop them up and put bodies that aren't meant to be on there, I think you kind of, you've got to expect it. You kind of deserve it by that point. But I think, sadly and not sadly, for the last time, this is the Aston assembled in its kind of, I guess, prototype form. The next stage is to lift the body up, pull the chassis from underneath and restore the chassis, which will be incredibly thrilling, I'm sure. That's sarcasm. So yeah, this is the last time you'll see it like this. Then the chassis will return all nice and clean, and the body will clean that up and make that all nice. And yeah, then it will be time for paint and interiors and all that sort of thing. So yeah, here we go. That's the 4x4 Aston prototype for the very last time. We'll have a little walk around this obviously incredibly emotional moment. Yeah, no, I'm so excited by this and how it's turned out. I mean, I don't think many of us thought it would actually come through. I always believed it would, actually. I shouldn't be harsh on myself. I always thought it would happen, but actually, I don't know why I thought that. It was blind optimism, but it exists. Okay, so there we go. Thank you so much for watching. I know this is slightly different, just kind of addressing a small issue as opposed to usually we're doing all sorts of bits and bobs, but it's something we really needed to address. The kind of, that piece sticking out the back was so ugly, and now it all makes sense, which is good. Like I mentioned, the next thing for the car is to separate it all and start actually making everything nice. So this is kind of where things get incredibly time consuming. You know, all of this has been very time consuming, but it's a different sort of work, what is coming next. But it's going to be well worth it, and it's going to be really nice putting together kind of clean parts, a clean chassis without rust and oil all over it, an engine which has been properly cleaned, which doesn't have residual oil from the last 20 years, you know, cleaning up the body so it's not sharp anymore. It's going to be nice. You know, I feel like I've spent the last few months covered in horrible old oil and dirt, and the novelty of that wore off quite quickly. So very exciting things to come. In the next episode, we're actually doing something slightly different. We are going to be upgrading the barn. I love this barn, but it's completely off-grid. There's no electricity, no water, nothing. So it kind of limits what you can do. So in the next episode, we're going to start upgrading it and making it a more usable workshop. And yeah, so lots to come. So that'll be quite an exciting episode. I'm looking at all of the things that need to be added. They're just behind the camera. And yeah, that'll be really fun. And whilst that's all happening, I'll be doing all the chassis stuff. So hopefully you'll have kind of a fairly seamless set of episodes, barn, and then back to Aston chassis restoration and painting and all that stuff. But thank you so much for watching. If you could kindly like, share and subscribe, it really does help me out. If you'd like to support the channel further, please check out the Patreon. I've linked it below. I recently introduced a new £1 tier and a few of you signed up. I know it's not very much, but it actually all adds up and allows me to get parts for this, which means I can make episodes quicker and all that fun stuff. But regardless, I'm just grateful you're here watching. Thank you for all the support on this series so far. We're really entering the final stretch now, so exciting times ahead. So until next time, take care and I'll see you then.